Chris Alexis, founding member of the Martial Club, and some promotion experts in all things Bruce Lee. There's a small change in the advertised schedule owing to unforeseen circumstances. Mr. Paul Young has prior filming commitments with Jean-Claude Van Damme. Right, there's very little I can say when in the presence of this fellow, so I would like to keep things moving. I think the best way we can have George speak to you is we discuss people who work with Bruce and bring you up to date on what they're doing at this moment. So to begin with, George, can you tell us about the action director of Bruce using his films, Mr. Hong Yin Jae?
Okay, I'm assuming that everyone's seen all of Bruce's movies more than once. Hong Yin Jae was the villain in the Big Boss, and he was Mr. Why did you kill my teacher? The gentleman in the receiving end. I tried to interview him last year, and he refused. And I felt a little offended, but I later found out that he was very sick, and he didn't want anyone to see him in the condition he was in. And a few months later he died. It was unfortunate because any information he had went to the grave with him. But after making the film, 2 films with Bruce, they had a parting of ways because Bruce was going in his direction, and he didn't need someone like Hong Yin Jae to dictate to him what to do.
Thank you, George. Now, I think everybody in the audience remember the young Maria Yi, the co-star of The Big Boss.
Maria Yi did the smart thing. She married into money. She got out of the film business, right, and she's living in Taiwan now. I think her husband's in the textile business. And she liked Bruce very much. She said she never met, I never met a Chinese like him. He was so different. And she said if Bruce had asked me to make more movies, I would have stayed in the business, but she just got married and, settling down now.
What about Nora Mel, the co-star of both the Big Boss and Mr. Fury?
Okay, Nora's still active. I don't know how she does it, but she gets more and more beautiful each time I see her. Nora used to be a singer before she got into film, and she got back to singing. She tours around the world, to Chinatown and so on. You might even see her in London, Chinatown one day. She was recently in New York. She's planning to migrate to Canada after the 97 ordeal. What I felt from her is this woman really, really loved Bruce. I mean, in her heart, she would do anything for this man. They talk about how Betty King Pei and so on. Nora would do anything for this man. I don't know what ulterior motives Betty had, but Nora, anything she did for Bruce was coming from the heart. One incident I want to relate to you about Nora, she's traditional Chinese still inside. When Bruce died, she asked Linda if she could stay in the house because she believed that, maybe Bruce would, Bruce's spirit would come back. And Linda said, okay. And Nora seemed satisfied to do that. I don't know anyone else who was willing to take that kind of trouble. And it just shows.
Perhaps a lady in the audience will have wondered about from time to time. I'm sure more Yin that was your sister into the dragon.
Yeah, I found out recently that Angela lives in New York, where I'm from. Again, she married into money also, but she's presently in Taiwan. She does little bit parts and this and that. She hasn't changed either. She looks the same like she did back when she was making, Lady Whirlwind and Into the Dragon. I don't know how they do it, but she's still dynamite. And currently, we're planning on teaming Angela up with Cynthia Rothrock, where Angela would play Cynthia's teacher. I think that would be a nice way to, to pass on the crown, so to speak.
What about Mr. Williams from Into the Dragon, Jim Kelly?
Okay, Jim, I have to say is a very, very bitter guy about, I don't know what, he was into drugs for a while. He had a bad cocaine habit, and I think recently he got out of it. But I found him still a little arrogant and belligerent, and I didn't get very positive things from him. But just to steer away from the questioning concerning Kelly, he was offered so many opportunities to succeed, and he just, pardon the expression, just pissed them away. He had every opportunity to make it big, but he never trained, he never did anything. And when I think about it, none of these guys trained to match the level of Bruce Lee. Chuck Norris, Van Damme, Ron Van Fleet, all these guys, they couldn't touch Bruce Lee, man. They couldn't kiss his big toe. They can't. And what really surprises me is the level of quality that's gone down from Kelly on upwards, where Bruce took us to a certain level, and it seems to be digressing with every new star coming out. And Kelly to be bitter to me is I don't understand, because he should have made as many movies as he did. After the first one, we should have all just shut him down.
I'm almost prepared to ask you about the next man, Mr. Bob Wall.
Yeah, the first thing Bob ever told me, came out of his mouth, was, you realize that I could have beaten Bruce 1, 2, 3. So I was very polite to him because I needed materials from him. And, he went on to say, about this, that. I mean, the man has a very bad ego problem. And originally, Mr. Bob Baker, Bruce wanted Bob Baker to play the Bob Wall roles, but there's either schedule problems or Warner Brothers didn't want it. There's always something happening. I think personally Bob Baker would have made a better opponent. But the only reason Bruce used the guy, by the way, was, as he put it, Bob gets hit so damn well. So, Bob, I found, he like guys like Ed Parker, Bob, in their hearts, they envy Bruce, but they hate him because of who he was and what he can do. Because here these guys who are trying to make it and so on, and along comes this little Chinese guy, and he can do whatever he wants at will. What these guys work so hard for, right? Bruce could just do, they show you, Bob said, I'd show him my best technique, and he could do it better than me on the spot. So, Bob really didn't have, he had a few nice things to say, but they were covered with a veil of hatred. So I can't say anything positive about Bob because no one else who, in the Bruce Lee family, so to speak, and Bob was part of that family for a while. And when he went out and told people private things about Bruce, that was like a betrayal. It's like one of your family members going out to the public, to total strangers, and telling them your family secrets. That's how they felt about it. Like he plays the traditional Kung Fu master, because he's from that era. I mean, the guy's in his 70s. Unfortunately, he's confined to a wheelchair now, because he's getting sicker and sicker. He's still healthy, but he's just having leg problems. And the one interesting thing about him is, he didn't realize, he knew Bruce when he was a little kid, making movies. So I don't think in his mind, he realized what Bruce Lee had evolved into. And even to the day that I would speak to him, the guy it didn't penetrate his mind what Bruce Lee had accomplished. He always remembered Bruce as a little kid. But one thing I remember is, I had this, a Japanese graphic novel that had the whole Enter the Dragon story. And this man actually sat and looked at every single page of the thing. He spent about 15, 20 minutes just looking through it, which I've never seen anyone do that. So the good news is he's still around. The bad news is I don't know for how much longer. Howard Williams, you probably never heard of. Howard is part of James Lee Open School, and I found Howard through another person who basically is a pretty crazy guy. It's just amazing how one thing leads into another. And when I found Howard, I said, this is, I couldn't believe what he was telling me. He had to physically show me what he was talking about. And I have to say, this guy is the most awesome fighter I've ever seen. This man studied with Bruce when he was 15. He He never practiced martial arts before, and all the information that's been put into him is from Bruce and Jimmy. The man is pure Jeet Kune, no contamination, no poisons. And he's got superb genetics, so he can make the stuff, he can make the JKD work on the level of Bruce. He's got speed, he's got power, he's got reflexes, his neural system is very high. So when I saw Howard, he was reluctant to come out to the public. He said, because he saw other people commercializing, bastardizing the system, trying to, basically for profit. And he said, I don't want to be associated with that plan. I said, Howard, people care out there. There are people who really want to learn. They really want to see what it's about. So he finally agreed to come. And I mean, I'm really happy to introduce Mr. Howard Williams.
And this is Mr. Howard Williams. Oh, just hang down. Now you are a long-standing member of the Open Plan and student of Bruce Lee. Tells us the fastest JKD fighter on the planet. Can you tell us a little of your martial arts background and how you came to meet Bruce Lee?
I was 15 years old when I first started, and it was through my mother and stepfather that I met Bruce first. What had happened was they were going to try to find a school for me, and my real father didn't want me to take any martial arts at all. So I had to actually run away from home to live with my mother and go through the whole system in order to take this. And then one day he came to me and said he found something that was faster than karate. And I was really fascinated by that. So I said, what could that possibly be? And he said, Kung Fu at that time. And so we went down to the place, and that's when I first met Bruce. I met Bruce as he was actually getting prepared to go to Los Angeles, California to make Green Hornet. And then from that point I met Jimmy Lee and stayed with him ever since.
Bruce, can you speak?
I don't like to compare my speed with Bruce. To hit the whole thing of Jeet Kune Do is geared towards one's individual self. I am, for myself, the art is tailor-made to me and my speed, whereas Bruce's is tailor-made to him and his speed. I was told by James that mine came natural, whereas Bruce's, he had to work at it. But I also had to work, believe me. It's nothing that comes easy. There are many types of speed and genetics. Genetics has a lot to do with it. So it's still hard work either way it goes.
You were training with Bruce in the school on Telegraph Avenue in London following the One Jack Man confrontation. And this led Bruce to reevaluate his approach to combat. How would you describe this transition period?
Personally, I feel if it wasn't for that particular incident, Bruce would have not developed into what he is today, or would have been at the time and would have been today, because it allowed him to realize the limitations of what he had, and that he was human, and he had to overcome some of the frailties that comes with being human, and it was really a chore for him to discover the cause of his ignorance, to improve upon himself, and then pass the legacy on to the rest of us. So it really was beneficial to have that confrontation.
Bill has written for the Black Belt magazine, and he studied with James Lee. He signed off those articles describing himself as on the board of directors of the Jeet Kune Do Society. Can you tell me, what does this entail, and are you involved with this relationship with Bruce Lee?
Well, James and Bruce had a relationship together that were like father and son and best friend. Bruce really took to him, and everything that he gave to James, and James gave to us. I enjoyed being with Jimmy because he was a personal. He down to earth and personal, and was able to just come out there and just bring the best out of you and let you know how it's done, why it's done, and when to do it. And you were free to ask any questions you want. And being that I was the youngest person in the class, I was actually thrown into the advanced class and was told that don't worry, that eventually I would catch on because the routine would be repeated several times. And so I was determined that I would make it, and James really helped me to relax and to be myself, and he really molded me, and I really appreciate what he's done for me, him and Bruce. And Bruce would occasionally come down and he would show us his latest development, and we would take it, and then James would make sure we learned it properly. What we call West Oakland, which is a real bad town, and we were forced to fight to survive and to maintain a level of efficiency that you would not ordinarily understand without having been there. But it forced me to realize that I wanted to learn something that would add to my ability to take care of myself. And Jeet and Go helped me not only to learn how to physically defend myself, but it also taught me how to avoid situations and encounters, because that's more important than actual combat. But sometimes you can't help it, especially in that area. Oakland is the murder capital of the entire United States. I think it's about 187 murders this year, and it's still climbing every day. It's not easy to live out there, but you can if you understand who you are. Wow, that's a hard question. Being that he was already kind of light years ahead of a lot of us in the martial arts world, being that the reason being is that he understood what it meant to explore oneself and discover the cause of your ignorances and weaknesses. Whereas a lot of us, we are looking forward to accumulating things, putting things and piling them up. He was constantly eliminating them. So, and a lot of people have that problem today still. So being that he was the way he was then, he would have still been that far ahead of a lot of us today. And when your mind is free, you can create. And that was one of his major aspects, is his creativity and ability to adapt to anything, or try to adapt to most everything.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Howard Williams.
I broke the ice by telling him an anecdote that I had heard. That I said, Bob, is it true that Jimmy was the only guy that Bruce knew that could do a pox out with a beer in his hand and not spill a drop? And Bob just broke up.
Hi Bob. Well, first of all, welcome to the United Kingdom. Is this your first visit to England?
Yes, it is.
Apart from your appearance in the Chinese Connection, or Fist of Fury, I hear very little is known about your further involvement with Bruce. After all, you've been friends for some 10 years. Tell me, how did you first meet Bruce Lee?
I met Bruce Lee through James Lee. I was studying with James Lee, and I just met Bruce one day, and that was it.
In his book, The Incomparable Fighter, the ex-Black Belt magazine publisher Miko Uyehara refers to you on a number of occasions, most notably in the encounter between Bruce and yourself at the 1967 Summer Long Beach tournament, during which you apparently volunteered to hold the pad. Bruce's now famous one-inch punch. Can you care to tell us what took place?
Well, the man just almost split my sternum. I always volunteered to hold the field and take the punches. I thought that was the way of learning. It sounds stupid to some people, but I'm not a masochist or a snap or but I just know that was part of it. Just to make it better.
You've spoken of the amusing incidents on Fist of Fury, like during the grappling scene where you had Bruce in the splits and you bit him. What happened to Bruce during that scene?
Well, I couldn't respond the way that he wanted me to, so I said, well, fight me. And when he bit down on my leg, I yanked my leg out naturally. And I almost had his teeth out, too. Don't see it on the screen, but it was, I think it was cut off, it was cut. But I almost yanked his teeth out.
You've spoken of the actual force of contact during different fighting scenes. Did you actually hit each other?
Yes, we did. Except for a few of the scenes where I was imitating when you really trying to be more like a karate style, on guard, which is the hardest style, Chinese kung fu. I really just sparred after that. And it was pretty much what you saw was pretty much really kicks and punches.
Can you tell us about, having spent so much time with Bruce, what was it you most enjoyed about him?
Oh, I just love him. I don't know what to say about that. There's nothing I can say. I really don't know what to say.
I think that's it. Oh, well, thanks for being so generous with your listeners. This gentleman is Paul Baker. Is it true, Bob, you fought a promotional fight with Bruce that was never shown?
Yes. Well, not really. It was a trailer, really, for the advertisement of Fist of Fury. And actually, I've seen some pictures here that I forgot all about. It brings back some very good memories. The one that somebody had here with two of us bumping shoulders, which was from this fight scene. We had to keep reshooting it because we were having so much fun bumping into each other, knocking each other down, that took quite a few shots just to get that one little scene. It was all I remember it was nothing but fun. Naturally,
Yeah, in the middle. Who's that addressing? What was the question again? What did the training session consist of? Bruce's workouts?
Just for myself or for him?
See, Bob and I were in the same school, so either one of us could have answered that one. It was very regimental. In fact, our class was real small because the people could not keep the paces of the training. They were looking for some magical secret to becoming good and efficient, and there's no such thing. You have to work. You have to work hard. You have to sweat. You have to hurt. And we were actually using what was, like you might say, real bullets with near misses. That's how real we had to train, because you fight the way you train, and it reflects in the street. So it was rough.
Anyone else? Guy with the glasses.
Was it basically full contact then, the training?
Well, we always take care of who's in front of us. We realize that it's still training, but we didn't have a lot of protective equipment in those days, and the only thing that was probably protecting us was just a bare hand, but there were some slips and accidents, and Jimmy used to say, you bleed in class so that you won't out there in the street. So we didn't care about that. We realized that it's all part of training, and you have to realize that there are going to be some accidents when you train hard and for real.
Yes, guys.
Did I ever see him lose his temper? Yes, I did. Yeah, he was quite awesome when he lost his temper. He had the ability to look right through you, and show you right to the phone. You never did it again.
Yeah, man. Anybody else? Guy right at the back.
Do I think that Bruce finally conquered his ego? Yeah, see, that's one of the major battles with all of us, you know. We have to sort of like die to self, be willing to get rid of the inhibitions that are inside of you in order to be free enough to deal with what's in front of you. Yes, Bruce did conquer his ego, and the main thing that he was trying to get us to do is to do the same thing, which was a monumentous task. It wasn't easy. Self kept getting in the way. And I'm still working on that now.
Anyone else?
Spiritually, I think that my own personal experience with studying was already there. But spiritually, he was very quite happy with himself. But that makes sense. Well, I don't know. Does that kind of answer your question? Well, everything that he did actually was martial arts first, and then movies, an actor second. People see him the other way around. Everybody thinks he was an actor that turned martial artist. He was a martial artist first, and one of the only true ones that I've ever known. When I studied judo, aikido, karate, Shaolin Kung Fu, boxing, and everything else. And I don't know how many different styles of karate. And the only true one that I ever really thought I had was Bruce.
You miss 3/4 of its meaning. It has to be a way of life. And you have to be able to apply it in everything that you do, everything. And it's not easy, but it's obtainable, and it's a lifetime venture, not just a few years and you've got it. So.
Right, as I revealed to you all earlier, Mr. Paul Young is unable to attend because of the prior filming commitments, but a very special guest celebrity has made a tremendous effort to attend today's proceedings. First, Mr. Saxon, I'd like to begin by welcoming you to the United Kingdom. Is this your first visit to England?
No, I've been here several times. I worked here once in 1965, but I haven't been here for almost 20 years. I'm very glad to be here today, and imagine the warm welcome that you're giving me after a film that was made 18 years ago, a film that I almost didn't do, but that's another matter. When I went to Hong Kong, my son was 2 years old, and he was invited one day to Bruce Lee's daughter, Shauna's second birthday party. He doesn't remember any of that. He doesn't remember anything about Enter the Dragon. As a matter of fact, he didn't start going to the movies until many years later, and I think he regarded that as Enter the Dragon as one of the old films that I made, and didn't pay much attention to it until last week, actually. He called and he had discovered Enter the Dragon after 18 years. So finally I'm getting a little respect from my son. And someone interested in the martial arts secondarily. But watching Bruce immediately when I first met him, the success that he had already in Hong Kong, he was really a people's hero. And I've never seen anybody enjoy that position and that role more than he did. He relished being something to the people, being a celebrity. What might be like as an actor in years to come? Would he be able to make transitions? Would he play a role that wasn't a hero, that wasn't a martial artist? He said, you know, it was interesting, and it would be something he'd think about. Unfortunately, he didn't have the opportunity to think about it because he passed on. When I first met him, he introduced me to all the equipment he had in his house. And he asked me to show him what I could do. He asked me to do a side kick, and I did, and he said, well, let me show you how I think it should really be done. And he gave me an airbag, and he was going to demonstrate on me how he was to do it. So what I didn't realize was this was a gag, a joke that he often played on people. He had placed a chair very strategically about 15 feet behind me. And I braced myself, and he said, don't worry, I'm not going to kick you very hard. And he kicked me, and I flew 15 feet across the room into the chair, which is what he had planned, but he didn't plan that the chair would break. It was a chair that he had just bought and they prized very greatly. So we set off our relationship with a laugh. We went out, had lunch that day, and got to know one another. We began working a short time later, and I discovered that he was a little concerned and apprehensive about this film, about being an actor, really, as I was about doing the martial arts in the film. And so we began a relationship that was kind of cooperative and respectful, and I got along very, very well with him. I never studied with Bruce Lee, as these two gentlemen have, but I spent 3 months with him, questioning him constantly and asking him all sorts of things that would come to my mind about martial arts. We were constantly engaged in that sort of thing. I think it's a great pity that he didn't have the opportunity to develop, as I think he might have, as an artist, aside from a martial artist, because he had great intelligence and a sense of theater, a sense of demonstrating and writing, really, a role for himself. I asked him one day, I said, Bruce, what would you give to be 6'2" and 190 pounds? And he answered, if I was 6'2" and 190 pounds, I would rule the world. Bruce Lee has passed on, but all your presence here indicates that in some way, obviously, he hasn't. I constantly run into people who ask me questions about him. One of my most simple examples of what it's been like is one time I was in a hotel lobby in downtown Los Angeles on the telephone, and I saw a gentleman walk by me, and he saw me, and he did a big take, and I knew what was coming. He came over to me and he said, as I was on the telephone, he said, man, he said, I gotta talk to you. He says, I understand Bruce is alive. And I said, no, I'm afraid he's dead. He says, no, he says, I understand Bruce is alive. He's in a cave in Hong Kong and he's waiting just for the right time to come out. And I said, no, I'm afraid he's dead. He said, no, man, are you sure? He said, I got it on good source that Bruce is alive. He's in a cave in Hong Kong just waiting for the right time to come out. I said, his wife thinks he's dead. He said, man, what do women know? So with that, I'll just take some questions.
Any questions? What did you think of Bruce Lee's speed and power for his actual weight size?
His speed was fantastic, and his power for his size was extraordinary. The one thing that I mentioned about knocking me across the room, I think, was just commonplace, but his attack kind of power and his hardness. I mean, his body was so sinewy that in demonstrating any simple technique, even half a hit on any fleshy part of the body practically put you in paralysis. So he was tremendously strong and extremely quick.
Mr.
Yes, I've done a variety of things, all not very well. I first did some judo back in the late 50s, just for about a few months, never really achieved much of a status. I began karate about 1964. I studied pretty diligently for about 4 years, but that was until about 1968. My work, marriage, traveling abroad, necessitated that I just had to put my work as an actor first. I didn't have time to train. So by the time I began that film, I had really stopped any serious training, which was a kind of concern of mine. I was just doing some light calisthenics, Tai Chi Chuan, things like that, jogging, playing with weights a little bit. After working with Bruce, I got enthused again. I started considering training and went back to studying some Kung Fu and doing some Judo and Jiu-Jitsu, which I did up until about 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm just back to doing Tai Chi Chuan again. Yes, sir? No, I didn't say I didn't get the part. I said I almost turned it down. Well, when I first started training, as I was just explaining, I never anticipated that there'd be anything related to movies involved in it. It was a very private hobby, if you will. I even thought when, on occasion, after a couple of years, by about 1970, somebody would show up in the dojo with a script and want to talk to me about it, that it was not the thing to do. I didn't feel right about it. I didn't feel, it's hard to explain, I don't want to seem prudish or anything, but I didn't feel it mixed somehow. It's hard to explain why, but I didn't. When I stopped training, I adopted a kind of loose or more relaxed attitude. I didn't feel obligated to regard martial arts training as something, I wouldn't say sacred, but something apart from the commercial world is what I'm trying to say. So at that point, I read this script and I said, this is going to work. The time has come. This is going to be successful. He's an 18-year-old, and he was cheerful, and that's the last time I ever spoke to him. He went back to Hong Kong and died, I think, about two and a half months later. Yes.
Do you feel any signs of
Illness? No. I never saw anything like that. He was someone who took terrific care of himself. Chinese food in general, Cantonese food is considered very healthy. He was very, very especially careful, and he was taking all kinds of supplements. I had even advised him because he seemed so excited about the position he was in. He was being courted by producers in Hong Kong who were offering him $500,000, and he was not interested in that. He said, I remember him saying that Marlon Brando could get $2 million, so could he. It was a time of his life where there was such big stakes that he was really, I would say, tense, and I was kind of, friendly with him and advised him to just take a drink every once in a while, which it seemed to me he wasn't inclined to do. So he seemed like certainly a health enthusiast and an extremely fit person. Well, I was on the set the day that they had the scene in which Bruce cut his hand on the bottle that Bob Wall held. Obviously, on the face of it, it looked like a question of a Chinese production where fake bottles are not used or don't exist, whereas in Hollywood we have a glass that is not, dangerous to use in scenes like that. And it seemed to be certainly an accident, but I know that Bruce was very upset about it and quite angry. I really didn't know much more about what was going on in the background of that. He sort of looked like Humpty Dumpty, come to think of it now. He actually wound up being Humpty Dumpty, because he was saying something to Bruce that I really didn't understand. It was in Cantonese or Mandarin. But apparently he was questioning his ability. Something like, well, you're good in the movies, but are you any good in real life? So Bruce asked him to come down, and it was over in a flash. He hit him in the nose and bloodied it. The kid realized that he had overmatched himself very quickly, and that was it. There was nothing more to it. No, I don't. I met his wife, Linda, while we were all in Hong Kong. We visited, went out a couple of times and visited, but after Bruce's death, my only real relationship was with Bruce. So I do it with feeling, with the intention, And I think, in general, that's probably... He was very expressive because I think something was going on in him at all times. I watched a little bit of the interview and heard his laugh, I think for the first time in all these years, and I was reminded not only of his intensity of anger, but his intensity of amusement. He was always and easily amused and filled with stories and a sense of sort of joy and interest in things. He was an energetic person, for sure. He was very alive. I think all those things contributed to what you're talking about. Try this and something like that. So we were in constant discussion, collaboration, and I was a very willing pupil and very appreciative of all his insights. Yes, sir. Jim Kelly. I saw Jim Kelly about 2 or 3 months ago, for the first time in perhaps 15 years. He somehow gravitated away from the film business. I don't think he totally is wanting to. I think he's interested in getting back. He seemed to become something of a semi-pro tennis player for a while. He looked quite good. We talked briefly. I don't know his plans though. What kind of a match are you thinking of? Turtles, is that it? Maybe that's it?
Jet lag is setting in on me now. But I'm going to try to give you the most efficient combat fighting art around today. There are other arts now that are very efficient, but directness is the key, is the root to success when you're dealing with a street fighter, a person who's out to try to kill you if they can. And the object is to stop him as quickly and as efficiently as you can without any wasted motion. A lot of martial artists don't like Aikido because it's not a pretty art. It doesn't have a lot of flowery moves. And I just tell them if they want to learn to dance, just go to a dance studio. If they want to learn to fight, then they come to the right place. Now, what I like to first start off with is showing you the effectiveness and the power of the straight jab. Punch, straight punch. Now, a true punch, first of all, cannot be blocked, and it cannot be stopped, and you have power from close quarters, and there's nothing you can do to get away from it. In Aikido, a true punch, and you usually drop straight down instead of falling back 10 feet like most people do. But you may go back today about 10 feet because I'm going to demonstrate the 2 or 3 inch punch, the effectiveness and the power of that. But in reality, he would drop straight down and he wouldn't get up. That's another thing. In Jeet, all techniques are meant to stop you on the spot. I mean, there's no getting up. If you do, something is lacking in your power, in the physics, and the application of the technique. And I want to also emphasize that if you have any question,
anything you'd like to share, feel free to do so. We're all one family here, and there's nobody here trying to outdo the other. We're just trying to become educated and learn something and try to apply it to whatever you have, whatever art form you have. It doesn't matter. If it helps you to personally defend yourself and look out for yourself, then you learn to use it. My job is to just take what you have and try to make it more efficient, show you another way that you might be able to adapt. And feel free, this is still new to me. I've not been before large crowds, so I'm basically just quiet and do it type of person. So I'll show you one example. The only thing that I will be doing is I have my elbow bent, and it will be right here, and then extending my elbow, but exploding from the waist and going into him. And the whole object is to try to go through him, not just hitting the surface. Quick, and you don't know what he's going to do. First instinct is he's after you. So you just, right here, he's going to fall right there on the ground. And then from that point, you can do anything you want to do because he is really out. He doesn't know it. He's out. And the effectiveness of that punch, a true no punch, will do that every time. The physics behind it is generating from the waist and keeping the arm straight and putting your whole being into it. It's a lot of mental too. You have to free your mind, but you don't have to concentrate. Just do it. As soon as you're ready to do it, just do it. Explode through it. Now, I mentioned that you can't block the straight jab either. Now I'm gonna throw a straight jab at him, and he's gonna try to stop it, block it, touch it, anything. Now, if he can do that, then I'm not fast enough, or there's something I'm doing wrong. Now that doesn't mean because he touches it that your technique is not effective. But what it does mean is that you're taking the chance on being stopped because he is able to get to you before you can get to him. The whole object is to try not to be stopped. So I'm going to stand right here. This is average arm length. I'm not going to hit him, but I'm going to throw the punch, and he's going to try to react as soon as he sees it coming. Just either way he wants. Try to block it, anything. Yeah, you can try to parry it when you feel it coming. Okay, so it's always from right here. Normally, I don't get into any stance because it's not realistic. If you get into a stance, then that means that the opponent already knows what you're trying to do. You give him another edge over you. You're trying to keep a razor's edge. So I'll stand right here, and all of a sudden, right here, and he can't, he's not trying to block it. From here, right there. Now, or you can go the same way with the finger jab. Right there. So, it's the technique that if a person is rushing in on you, you can stop it. Like he's moving in on me. So right there. And then you can go from your technique flow into anything else you want to do. But you've got to intercept that man's first initial movement first. Anything else is secondary. And trapping is also, by the way, secondary. It is a part of the art, but it's not an essential part. You always think hit, and more hit. Those people out there on the street are not going to wait for you to sit there and grab hold of their hand and lock them in and tie them in knots. They're going to try to kill you. They want to get rid of you, and they do anything that they can to do so. So, everybody stand up. These turns, right there. That's how you do it. Now slow, boom. Now remember, when you extend it, skip it always, and tough can tell that's what you're doing and stop you with a Jeet, with a kick. So it's always hand before feet, then you do it. Now, Remember, when you extend that punch, the wrist goes up this way at the last second. No, you're going to, this is just for dramatic effects and to show you the application of the technique. But the back fist is still from this position, and you can fake in low, and he's going to try to block it from there. Go down. He's going to block it. Yeah, like that. And if I see the resistance, then I'm going to come in, and then I'm going to back fist it. Boom, right there. And if he blocks it again, if he does block it, if he pushes this way, then I'm going to grab again, pop. But then again, he's not supposed to do that. So in reality, you cut the movement in half. So it goes right there. Now I'm not going to hit him, but I'm going to show you the effectiveness. Boom, he blocks. Boom, right there. That's his hand, not his head. Now, so the back fist, right there, coming in. Now notice now, that's a different technique. You got to take away that kicking leg. If you don't, he can kick you in the groin. So, or you can step on the outside, but never come toe-to-toe with the person. But then that's also another technique. But the main thing is the back fist. It's done relaxed. It's a circular motion. Boom, boom, boom. Just twisting of the waist going this way. Boom. Then you go for his ribs. You will penetrate. You will hit him. If he blocks it, then that's when you come up. And with all the fury that you can muster up. And it's very effective. And then, but see, the other technique wouldn't exist. You see, reality is a whole key in Jeet Kune Do. I can teach you all the moves, but in reality, only one or two would really happen. So, but when you know and you can see everything, then you can appreciate the faster application of Jeet Kune Do. Okay, now, what I'd like to also show you, boy, that jet lag is tearing me up. Bear with me. It's the rear cross. The rear hand. You're in this position, and you've already done. You faked him or you hit him. Come up, and he blocks up. He blocks the hand, and you grab. You lopsided and tear his head off. The force of that. First, we work on the lopsided before we start blasting. Okay. Normally, the lopsided. How many know what a lopsided is? Okay. A real lopsided is actually meant to jerk your head off, not the way some people I see do it. They go, you know, that's not going to do. You want to try to drag him behind you, but he normally will meet the punch before he gets it behind you. So the true lopsided, try to bring him in that way. Then you can come in and do anything you want to do. Throw, hit, anything you want. But you got to, normally you won't even get that close to a person first until you fake, then lopsided and come in. But this is just to show you what a lopsided is. Then we'll expand on what is used for later. Okay, everybody stand up, try it. stop with a side kick or a straight kick. Basic directness, not fanciness, no deviation, no trying to look good, just effectiveness. Boom, stop. So the person comes in on the inside. You come in. Now, basically, for class sake, we're going to start from the right side on the hand, right? So he's going to come in with anything he wants. He's going to try, in other words, he's going to try and touch me. And I'm going to intercept him with one of the two kicks I've mentioned. Right here. Normally, I would have been stand. Right there. Hit right in here. Or the other one, straight kick. Right there. But you've got to take care, use control, because you can really hurt that knee. Or, okay, those are two basic kicks. You don't really, if you master those two kicks, you don't need anything else. Why try to accumulate a whole bunch of clay on an already perfect sculpture when you just want to refine what you have and constantly chisel away? So it's that basic side kick that stops. Person comes in on you. Or the other one. Right there. And you've got to make sure that you bring that kicks back. Don't leave it dangling like I see a lot of martial artists do. Because then you get killed again. Okay, that's Don't flick it out there. Just leave it there.